All right, I just got that we're on. Okay, so hey everybody. My name is Natasha Ratliff with Natasha Ratliff Real Estate. We have Ephraim Jackson from Free to Serve. He's our financial guru here in house that tries to help all our clients and our community try to see what we can do to help everyone get on the road to home ownership, better financial strength in their homes, and how that's going to help prosper not just you but also to the generations after you, so we can relearn or learn better habits than maybe what was taught to us previously from our family. So we're going to break the chain. We're going to start off on the right foot. We got 2021 coming, so we are all ready for a brand new year, a new start. Today our topic is about bankruptcy. And as a we can hear, well, I can't buy a house. I have a bankruptcy. Tie hand in hand usually is due to either a job situation, your financial, and also maybe it's the proper way of managing the money, or maybe the mortgage you purchased was just too much. So you need a way out. And someone told you bankruptcy was the option. Now, we are not here to criticize. We are only here to inform. And if that's something you're considering or have considered, what you can do to help in the situation currently. So I'm going to let Ephraim take the floor, and he's going to help us out. Please do. I am watching on our Facebook channel, on the business page. So if you have any questions, I'll see those in the comments, and I'll post, ask him on the interview. And if you happen to catch this on the replay, please don't hesitate to put a comment or question in there, because we're still watching those as well too. We are here to help everyone. So Ephraim, with that, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Tash. Appreciate you. Appreciate you letting me be here again. So I always
No
have a
problem.
good time. I got my tea. I got my chrysanthemum tea, so I'm ready.
All
So,
right.
so good. This is an interesting topic. Bankruptcy, especially nowadays, because with COVID and the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people are struggling, and you see people, like you just kind of said, people saying, well, maybe you need to file bankruptcy. Maybe that's your option that you need to go with. But I'm under the belief, and this is, once again, like you said, this is not criticizing
Yep,
anybody
you
for making
are.
that decision,
I
but
was just.
I'm under the belief that I think most people are more scared and then lack a plan versus that are actually bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
That's my. I think a lot of people, they get scared because the situation has progressed to a certain point, and then they feel like they don't know what else to do. But most people are really just scared or lacking a plan. They're not really bankrupt. I've been in finance for almost 20 years. I've been teaching and educating folks for a very long time, and probably taught like thousands of folks by now. And in that time, this is real talk. In that time, I think
Mm-hmm.
I've met maybe two people that I consider was actually really bankrupt.
Okay.
And in both of those situations, in the first situation, there was somebody who the husband had left them and left them with a ton
Mm-hmm.
of stuff, and they were going through some emotional and mental things as well. So even then, they weren't technically 100% bankrupt. It's just because they didn't have any fight left in
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And so they were bankrupt because she had chosen not to fight anymore. The weight of everything got to a certain point. And
Okay.
then in the second situation, the person had a ton of medical debt and medical things, and they were dealing with a medical illness in the family. And same thing, they could have fought, but it's, once again, just the weight and the stress is what did it for them. So I think
Mm-hmm.
most people think they're bankrupt when they're really not.
Okay.
They're
Right.
really not. And so if I had to tell somebody what to do, the first thing I would ask them is, say, what do you have a plan? What is your, it's kind of like, if you think about it, this is a weird analogy, but if you think about it, it's kind of like if you're in a relationship, right, with
Mm-hmm.
somebody, and you don't want to be with that person long term, and you
Mm-hmm.
and instead of just telling them, hey, I don't think this is going to work out, I think we should do something different, you just drag it on until you get to the point where they're keying your car and all this crazy stuff is happening. it's kind of it's kind of the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
people go dark on their creditors, they go dark on the mortgage company, they go dark on all these places because they don't want to fess up to their own truth, right? They don't want to fess up. So that'd be the first thing, is you have to recognize your own truth. You have to recognize, hey, you know what? I have a situation that I need to
Mm-hmm.
address, I need to deal with, and let me actually start dealing with these companies, calling them, getting the help that I need, so I can start actually forming a plan versus, waiting until your car gets keyed just
Right.
years later.
Yeah. Or you're avoiding the mailbox because all
Mm-hmm.
you see are past due. I mean, honestly, just putting it out there, I've been in that
Oh
situation.
yeah,
You get in too far over your head and you're like, man, I don't even want to go to the mailbox because I
yeah,
know this is just bills waiting for me and I'm just not ready to deal with it, like you mentioned. So
yeah.
that
So that'd
was
be the
some
first
years
part.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been there too. Don't the real talk? I've been there too. That same thing. You make that trek to the mailbox, and you're just like, man, can somebody send me a card or a note? Something. I'm gonna get all these bills.
Right.
Can I get a Christmas card? Something. Uh, and yeah, but that's the first part. You have to
Some.
embrace your truth. You have to embrace where you truly are, and get past the fear. A lot of times, I think to get past the fear, that's where you need someone to walk alongside you. Somebody, whether it's a financial professional or
Right.
someone to walk alongside you to help you get over that fear. Because once you lay all the cards out on the table,
Mm-hmm.
I've done this a lot when I've done coaching with people. After we actually look at everything, we tend to find out it's not as
Mm-hmm.
bad as they thought. Or when we lay
Right.
actual plan out and we say, hey, it is a little bad, but here's, if you follow this plan, you can be done in 3 years or 5 years or 6 years or whatever, or two
Exactly.
years. So it's laying it out as part of it. Just people need to want to have to confront it. You gotta
Mm-hmm.
confront the monster.
Right.
But the other thing I'd say with that too, if a person is thinking about bankruptcy, they're thinking about these different issues as it relates to bankruptcy. You got to remember that bankruptcy doesn't solve all your problems. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because depending on which bankruptcy you're doing, the most popular is Chapter 7, Chapter 13 for individuals, and depending on which one you're doing is going to determine what ends up, what path you end up going. And a lot of times, a lot of the debts that they have, like student loan debts,
Mm-hmm.
tax liens, tax issues, those kind of debts, those things aren't forgivable in bankruptcy anyway.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so you really want to assess, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I trying to uh, considering bankruptcy? And then you walk this path considering it, and then only to realize later on that the majority of the debts you have wouldn't even be covered in bankruptcy
Exactly.
anyhow.
Yep. Putting you in a worse situation.
Exactly. So a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't realize that. Not to mention the cost that's associated with bankruptcy as well, right? So if you think about,
Mm-hmm.
there's two different kinds of costs. So you have the cost up front, right? Because you got to pay to do bankruptcy. So there's legal filings and things that can cost a couple $100. Not to mention if you have to get an attorney, that can be a couple $1,000s to do that. And I always
Okay.
tell people, if you're thinking about doing that, and you got to get money to pay a lawyer and do all this other stuff, that's money that you could be applying towards an actual debt plan
Exactly.
and just get the stuff paid off with or outright. So
Okay.
I'd much rather see people do that. I think there's a lot of alternatives people can take before they ever go down that path.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of it is just people embracing it and knowing how to go with those alternatives.
Okay. Now, what are the situation? So if they chose to still go through bankruptcy, what are the negative stigmatism that comes with going through the bankruptcy or the consequences
Hmm.
that they maybe were not aware? So now flipping the coin, okay, so I did do it. Now, what am I limited to, or how does it impact any other purchases that I make across the globe?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. I think people, when you're going through pain, a lot of times you just want the pain to stop, right?
Yep.
And you
Numb
don't
it.
think about the long-term impact of that, what you think is a solution at that time. It's kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
if you got an ant problem or a bug problem in your house, you wouldn't burn down the whole house to get rid of the bugs, right? You'd probably
Exactly.
find other solutions to do it. It's the same concept. So bankruptcy has a lot of long-term impacts. Number one, on your credit, right? Depending on which bankruptcy you do, is going to determine how long that impacts your credit. So if you're doing like a Chapter 7, which is like a complete liquidation
Mm-hmm.
bankruptcy, that can stay on your credit for 10 years. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
doing like a Chapter 13, which is a more of a reorganization type of bankruptcy, that stays on your credit for still at least up to 7 years. So one, you're going to impact your interest that you can get on different things. You're going to impact your ability to buy a house later on down the road. You're going to impact even your ability for certain jobs. Like I work in finance, and they check credit just
Mm-hmm.
for certain jobs, and they
Right.
check bankruptcies and all those different things. So you're really Like I said, you don't want to burn the house down to get rid of the bugs. you,
Okay.
and then not to mention, a lot of people just usually talk about the financial impact of bankruptcy, but then there's an emotional impact that I don't think a lot of people understand and realize, because there's
Okay.
kind of that stigma, right, that comes with the bankruptcy, like, oh, I had to file bankruptcy. And then there's a lot of emotional things that kind of come in play when you file bankruptcy that I don't think most people don't even think about or consider how that's
Hmm.
going to impact them emotionally. So you got to think about all these things and these long-term impacts of how this is going to end up impacting you. Not to mention, if you're like me, I don't like people all in my business. And when you file bankruptcy, that's a public record. So
Mm.
anybody can go pull that and know all your business, like laid out in the middle of the street there. So
Wow. I
yeah,
didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, I'm one of those people. Like, I don't need y'all in my business. So if you
Yeah, exactly.
so if you're
So
one of those
now,
people, yeah.
how how do you recommend, and maybe this would also come into the faith building, for those who are believers, those who are Christians and
Mhm.
believe in God, how do they actually can come back from this, from that emotional baggage or strain, just trying to get out of a situation and
Yeah.
now seeing the results of it, what they can do.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad you asked that, because the ministry that I do, Free to Serve, is tailored to people of faith. I mean, anybody's welcome to listen and hear the message about handling finances. But I think if what you got to understand, that if you're at the point of wanting to file bankruptcy, number one, I think you want to first explore alternatives before you go down that path, because I think, like I
Hmm.
said, most people really aren't bankrupt. I think they're just scared and lacking a plan.
Yeah.
But if you have gone down that path, or have already pulled that trigger, or that situation you think applies to you, number one, you got to know that it's God still loves you. That forgiveness is still there no matter what. But
Hmm.
how you start rebuilding is the same as anything else, right? You have to have a plan in place. You have to understand what got you in that situation in the first place, right?
Hmm.
Because
Acknowledging it.
exactly, to bankruptcy
Hmm.
is just a symptom of a bigger problem.
Hmm.
Right. So what caused you to get into that situation in the first place? And if you could, because I've actually seen this happen where a person filed bankruptcy, didn't address the issues that caused them to get into bankruptcy, and then racked up a bunch more debt years later. And so it just
Mm.
continues to be. I've had people file bankruptcy like twice,
Yeah.
for their lifetime. So you
Hmm.
have to address the symptoms, but understand what were you missing. So if you're going to rebuild, number one, acknowledge God, acknowledge what mistakes you've made, and being a good steward with your finances. And then
Hmm.
number two, start rebuilding. Like, what's
Hmm.
your foundation? Do you have the savings in place? Do you have the budget in place? Do you have a source to get extra income? So all these different things I consider your foundation. So then you want to start
Hmm.
attacking that foundation.
Okay. Now, I guess the next thing would be, for those who are married. I think for me, it had to come to recognizing your strengths and your
Mm-hmm.
weaknesses. And as I find that, working with a lot of married couples and just couples in general, there's somebody who's always better with the finances, and
Mm-hmm.
there's somebody who's more emotional with the finances. So you have your structured person, and you have your person that's like, nope. I think, we should just buy that couch. I mean, it's on sale. It's the
Yeah.
$1,100, and then you have that structured person who says, "Well, no, our budget said $599." And you're like,
Right.
"But I
Right.
want the 1,100." You're like, "No, we're gonna go $599 because that is our budget." That's so. I think part of
Yeah.
that too, is just knowing who's better on the strengths, who should handle what. And then, in part of that building of your plan is, you know what, I got us in this mess. So I probably shouldn't be handling the finances. You do better at it. I'll handle something else. Or do you
Yeah.
find most of the couples are kind of along that same line?
Yeah, I mean that's so true. I mean, anytime you're tackling finances as a couple, you want to make sure you're on the same page, and you're always going to have somebody that is a little more geared towards handling money, maybe a little bit more responsibly. Because they always
Hmm.
say, what do they say? Opposites attract, right?
Yes,
Is it going
yes.
to fall out doing something, right?
Yeah.
Opposites. uh, but yeah, opposites attract. So you're always going to have someone in that spectrum. But I think God puts those people in our lives because they even us out, right? Because they
Hmm.
have the one person that's one slant, and the other person is going to be the other slant. So I think that's also key, is accepting your role, if you're married, right? And if I'm married and it's saying, okay, if I know that I'm better, then you have to acknowledge that. I've seen some men sometimes where they don't want to acknowledge that their wife is better because they're like, oh, it's
Mm-hmm.
my responsibility. I'm the man. That's the,
Right.
I'm like, all right, man, you can play that role and be broke, or you can just let your
Mm-hmm.
lady handle it. You
Right.
know?
And get you somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's why I'm so passionate about trying to get people to think differently if they're considering a bankruptcy, because I think, once again, I think people have just they've reached the end of their ropes, and they've, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things they've allowed to build up. So
Mm-hmm.
now when it's time to deal with it, it's going to be harder to deal with it because you've let it keep going for so long, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like everybody got a Uncle Ray or Junebug. Or my dad was the
Said
Junebug.
June bug. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody got a Junebug. So my dad was the Junebug. But it's kind of like you got that relative, right? And they always
Mm-hmm.
complain about something being wrong physically, like, oh man,
Yeah.
my shoulder. And you like, man, you should go get that checked out. You should go to a doctor. You should do something. And they
Mm-hmm.
never do it.
Nope.
And then eventually that you end up seeing them there in the hospital. Now they let the problem go too far. It's the same thing with
Mm-hmm.
finances. It's the
Okay.
exact same thing. If you know that there are symptoms and things that are showing that I need to start taking care of this, if you start seeing the bills in the mail,
Mm-hmm.
okay, confront it, deal with it. Don't let it build up. Don't be a Uncle Junebug and let it get to the point where now you're at the stage where you think bankruptcy is the only thing that's left for you.
Right. Right. Now, for that person who is single and they don't have someone to kind
Mhm.
of balance off. So is that the role that maybe you would play in order to help them through that situation and say, you know what, give it to me and I'll kind of help work you through this so that, how does that work? What would you do?
Yeah. If it's someone who is, if we're say a person like is contemplating whether or not they want to go through bankruptcy or contemplating just getting financial help, yeah, I can definitely help people with that. That's something that I do. I do
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one coaching with individuals, single individuals, married couples, and we would sit down and put a plan in place and look at your finances and determine, okay, what is your actual situation, and create a
Mm-hmm.
plan to get you from your goals at A to B, right? Like where are you
Right.
at, and then helping to fill those gaps. So that's something I can definitely help people with. I have a private Facebook group that I always tell people come out and listen to. I do a ton of free trainings and talk about different things there. Even in the course, even in the group now, there's some recordings that I did on how to get out of debt and how to improve your credit. They're just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can go play them and apply the knowledge from them.
Okay.
So yeah, but if you're single, I would say if you're struggling financially, definitely get some help. You're gonna need a
Mm-hmm.
team. That's the thing people forget. So you get number one, some accountability. If you don't have accountability to
Yes.
change your habits,
Yep.
because maybe your girlfriends aren't the best accountability partners.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Maybe
Like those workout buddies.
right, exactly, right. Because maybe the only thing that's been saving you is because we got this pandemic and you can't go out shopping like you usually do.
Right.
But you maybe need some better accountability partners, and that's where somebody that's a
Mm-hmm.
professional, that's somebody who is kind of neutral, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody who can tell you the truth in love
Mm-hmm.
for your situation, I think is going to be helpful. So definitely get the accountability and get some professional help from someone like myself or another organization if that's what you need to do.
I think you brought up a good point here because regardless if you are single, married, in a relationship, sometimes it's not even the two of you who actually
Mhm.
will have a better plan. It's actually just having that third party
Yeah.
for that accountability, for someone to say, okay, we should
Mhm.
probably listen to someone else because
Yeah.
we haven't been able to figure it out. And acknowledging that you don't have all the answers. So you need
Mhm.
that financial representative or you need
Yeah.
that financial planner to say, help get us organized so that one, our children can be better off, our
Mhm.
household can be better off. We have a plan and a strategy that he didn't create, I didn't create. It's not, well, it's your fault, it's your fault. It's okay, we have someone designated who has the
Right.
expertise. Now let's just follow the plan.
Right.
And that way you can foresee or maybe adjust that plan as needed as their goals and aspirations change.
Right. And that's part of what I do is help people figure out that plan, because it's really
Hmm.
going to be their plan. I don't.
Right.
I always tell people if I'm sitting doing counseling and coaching with them that whatever plan we put in place is going to be their plan because it's based on their goals and where they want to go. But the
Mm-hmm.
execution of that plan has got to be 100% them, right?
Right.
They got to execute. And as the coach or the financial professional, our job is to be kind of like that coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
The players still got to go run the plays, but you got somebody on the sideline saying, hey, you know what? Don't run that play right now. that's,
Right.
that's not going to work. Or, okay, you ran
Yep.
that play, but you ran it wrong. Okay,
Exactly.
switch up, do this, do that. So that's
Yep.
where the coach will be helpful.
I think definitely you brought up some really key points, and I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but I do appreciate you coming on and
No, no worries.
stressing the accountability piece because that is so critical. We always can say, "Oh, well, this is the problem and that's the problem," but how did we play a part in creating that problem? How can
Mm-hmm.
we acknowledge the errors of our ways and then amend them? It's not
Yeah.
just, okay, well, it's someone else's fault. No, what was my role in it? And you have to sit down and whether you talk to yourself or look at yourself in the mirror and say, look, we got to straighten up, fly right. It's a new
Mm-hmm.
year coming on. You want to be in the house, but what are you going to do to get into a house? You want a new car? Even if you start accumulating all these new purchases, are you still going to be in the same position? So you have to really have that talk with yourself. And as I used to coach and train and do personal training, and even for myself, when I really say, you know what, I got to buckle down. I say I want to lose 10 pounds, and every other day I'm still feeding my face with cheesecake or cookies. So do I really want to lose it, or am I just talking?
Yeah.
And we all have to find that realization, like, I'm just talking a lot, but there's no actions, there's no accountability, there's no follow through. So I think you brought up some excellent points that I wrote down and I'll put into the chat down below. And the main thing is finally getting to that breaking point,
Mm-hmm.
to say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's regardless of whatever the situation is, whether it's weight, whether it's financial, health, whether it's I'm sick and tired of renting and I want a house. Stop saying what you want and just do it. You know, we can talk a lot, but let the actions follow. And
Yeah.
so I ask, I'm going to put the screen up here.
There we go.
Did I get it right?
Yep. Are you going side by or are you going
I
one way?
know. I was trying to go side by side. We're going to figure this out here in a minute.
There
There
you
we go.
go. Now
Okay,
we're
got
good.
it. I'm still getting used to this, you guys. I am not a perfectionist in any
No
way.
worries.
So I would just say, if you have questions, please do contact Ephraim. Go to his website or actually Facebook page, and learn the strategies. Even if you're not ready to admit it, but you just want to sneak a peek and you want to see what can you start working on and start building that until you're really ready to get his expertise. You're getting it without having any consequences. So definitely reach out to him. We'll put it, can access it. And thanks again, Ephraim, for coming on. Again, to those out there who are saying, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of your situation, whatever that situation is, whether it's financial, whether it's renting, whether it's a better house, um, even if it's weight related, it all comes down to acknowledging your situation, starting a plan, start somewhere. Get the assistance that you need, whether it's from a professional, somebody who has the expertise, looking on their pages for resources until you're ready to reach out, and then start the action. Just do one something every day. Say, I'm going to do one something, whether it's I'm not going to go to fast food places today, and then do 2 days or the whole week, and just start somewhere. Because as a people, as a community, there are not quick fixes. As he just explained, bankruptcy is expensive. It's not just a quick fix and a band-aid to your situation. How do we get there? Let's try to find a different alternative. Let's work out a plan, and you can avoid the expense of having to have that negative stigmatism on your record. So,
Hmm.
with that being said, we thank you so much for coming on today. We thank everybody for listening, watching the replay. And that's it for Real Talk on Real Estate with Natasha. Talk to you later.
Yeah.